of our community and our state in educating our students. Our mission for our students in this district is success each life, each day, each hour. We adhere to all pertinent laws, policies, and procedures in posting agendas and conducting our meetings. The detailed agenda information was made available to us at least 72 hours in advance, and we have all come to this meeting informed and prepared. We have just completed a workshop meeting where we heard reports and discussed much of the information needed to make decisions in either this meeting or in upcoming meetings. This is a meeting of the 7 trustees in a public setting rather than a public meeting. As such, the public comment is included on the agenda as a specific time and requires us to listen rather than take action so as to abide by the Open Meetings Act. We are pleased that you've taken time this evening to join us. We're very proud of this school district, and we thank you for your interest and support of our students. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin. We'll begin this evening, as we always do, with our pledges of allegiance to the Texas flag, the American flag, and our moment of silence. And we have some older students coming today. We have intermediate students from Cypress Grove Intermediate School and Oakwood Intermediate School. And we have their principals, Holly Scott from Cypress Grove and Josh Simak from Oakwood, to introduce our pledge leaders tonight.
Hi, I'm Holly Scott from Cypress Grove, and I'm going to have the students introduce themselves.
My name is Marley Petrick, and I'm a 6th grader at Cypress Grove.
My name's Zoe Muchin, and I'm a 6th grader at Cypress Grove.
My name is David Haven, 6th grader from Cypress Grove.
With us today from Oakwood Intermediate School, we have a 6th grade dual language student who came through South Knoll Elementary School, Mr. Jonathan Love. He is smiling now, and if you've ever seen him at school, he is always smiling at school, one of our favorite students. Straight A student, all A's throughout the entire year. Avid basketball player. We have a basketball game set up for the end of the school year. He doesn't understand, though, that I set the rules, so we'll play until I win. It'll be a half-court game to take the running part out of it, because there's a fundamental skill involved in that I can't do anymore, which is called breathing. And so I'm going to stack the deck in my favor so I can make sure I beat Jonathan. We're looking forward to big things from him, and I'm sure you'll be seeing his name in the paper as he grows up. He's got an older brother that's serving our country proudly in the Air Force, and we are proud to say that we will continue the love legacy. Mom and Dad are going to be sending us another one in a couple of years. To my right is Mallory Zumwalt. Mrs. Zumwalt's mom is one of our esteemed counselors at Oakwood Intermediate School. Mallory is a proud member of our orchestra, does a fantastic job there, is a 4-H rabbit shower, and my waistband can tell you she sells Girl Scout cookies. I've had more than one of her boxes of Girl Scout cookies this year, some in one day. Mallory, too, also has a younger sibling that will be joining us next year, and we're excited for both of them.
I pledge
Allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me in a brief moment of silence. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't be shy. Dr. Yokin, that concludes our recognitions for today.
We'd like to go ahead and thank you very much for coming. And acknowledge the artwork that we have decorating the boardroom. It was provided to us by College Hills Elementary, Rock Prairie Elementary, Cypress Grove Intermediate, and Oakwood Intermediate. Next on the agenda is item D, which is the consent agenda. The items that are on consent are G, H2, J3, J4, J5, J6, J7, and J8. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to pull off a consent?
Although it's tempting to get that quarterly investment report read out loud, I'm just going to go ahead and move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda being approved as presented, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So the motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to board reports. Does anyone on the board have anything they'd like to share with the rest?
I have an Education Foundation update. The Education Foundation will be hosting its 18th Senior Hall of Fame banquet on April the 26th at the College Station Hilton. There'll be 62 students from A&M Consolidated and College Station High Schools, along with their selected educators that will be honored. Education Foundation is hosting its first grant showcase on Tuesday, April the 4th, and we will travel to 3 different campuses to see 6 grants in action. And we are proud to announce we will be awarding a record $55,000 in senior scholarships on May 17th. And applications are available at givetokids.csisd.org, and they are due March 29th. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This was last night, and it was great to see quite a few kids from College Station ISD.
Good. All right. We'll move on to Superintendent Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin. Want to let everybody know about a piece of business that took place this morning in the Bryan College Station Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber and their executive committee stepped up and joined College Station ISD, over 500 school districts in the state of Texas, and some other organizations in passing a resolution against the A through F accountability system. This is not the first time that our Chamber of Commerce has stepped up and supported public schools through a resolution in this as far as things that are important to us. And several years ago, they passed a similar resolution against the overabundance of high-stakes testing that was happening at that time. So I appreciate Glenn Brewer, Executive Director, and David O'Neill, Board Chair, this year for their work and working with this. Dr. Roki and I had presented them with the opportunity to do this a while back, and I appreciate them stepping up and joining the Lufkin-Angelina County Chamber of Commerce, who's done similar action. So we appreciate them and their support of public education in this community. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the legislature right now. There's a tremendous amount going on. I want to highlight just a few things, though. The appropriations bills are moving through the Senate and through the House at this point. There is a significant difference between the two versions. There's about a $1.47 billion difference in education alone between the House and the budget, the House and the Senate's, and that has to do with the money available to lessen the effect of recapture. That was one of Speaker Strauss's one of his priorities this session, and I'm happy to say that House Bill 21 has been introduced by House Public Ed Chairman Huberty, and that would appropriate that $1.47 billion to help lessen the effect of recapture, bring some more equity and capacity into the system, And should House Bill 21 go through, it would be very advantageous for College Station ISD. In fact, about 96% of districts and charter schools across the state would see increased funding as a result of that legislation were it to go through. So the appropriations bills are working their way through both of the chambers. House Bill 21 is getting some legs in the House. The Senate is having a small committee work on potential changes to this finance system, so we'll see how that plays out. From A through F, we just talked a little bit about that with the chamber resolution. Some pretty close bills have been filed in both the House and the Senate. House Bill 22, again by Chairman Huberty, and Senate Bill 2051 by Senate Chairman Larry Taylor out of Friendswood. Both look to not scrap the A through F accountability system, but to lessen it, taking from 5 domains down to 3, get rid of some of the troubling issues that they have right now with Domain 3 and Domain 4. And so both of them would still continue to keep A through F ratings on for schools and school districts. So there's a lot of similarities between those two bills, that both of them were championed by the chairs of those respective committees. So that will bear watching as we go through the rest of the legislative session. We've just passed the halfway point of our 140-day 140-day legislative session. So things will start happening very, very fast from this point forward. We are looking for the opportunity to take the superintendent student cabinet to Austin to visit our elected representatives, and we'll be going on Monday to take those folks, those student leaders, and advocate on behalf of College Station ISD. Some other upcoming events I want to talk about. I want to take this opportunity to let everybody in the team of 8 know we will be celebrating Mrs. Barrett's birthday early next Tuesday in a team of 8 training. We have a location and an activity and a venue for our team of 8 training. It will be from 3 until 6. It will be at the Texas A&M University Challenge Works Ropes course. And I have for your signature here a waiver. So we are looking forward to our work together as a team of 8, truly exemplifying teamwork as we go through ropes activities and work together to improve our trust and communication.
I'm certain I'm too old for that.
So if you have any questions, Dr. Yokin would love to answer them.
Any questions? Wear closed-toed shoes.
We'll bring water and wear closed-toed shoes. Next Tuesday, the 28th, 3 to 6.
It's on your calendar. I can see it right here.
And with that, Dr. Yokin, that ends my report.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions about the team of 8? So we're going to move. Why? Yeah, turn this in before you leave, please. F, hearing of citizens, Ms. Horn. Okay, then we will move on to H1, receive report related to CSISD's counseling and guidance service. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin. We have been, over the past 3 years, doing 6 of these departmental reports, programmatic reports a year for the board, and I'm happy to say we have gotten to our last one, and we've saved the best for last. How do you like that, Chrissy? Chrissy Hester, our Director for Student Services, does a number of things, as you know, in the school district. One of her main roles, though, is she oversees the guidance and counseling program and all of our counselors. And she is here to give a brief presentation about counseling and guidance in College Station ISD and touch on a number of activities that entails. She really doesn't have the time to go into all that counseling and guidance entails, because it is a tremendous amount of work that our counselors do for our students and families in College Station ISD. So appreciate Ms. Hester coming, and with that, the floor is yours.
Dr. Ely, just so you know, a counselor's job is never done. While you all have been meeting there, John Hall got a call from the police department that we had a missing child on the microphone, and we have found the missing child. So just a little brief counselor job there. It never ends. So in all districts, but particularly in College Station ISD, counselors wear many hats. And just to clarify, there's a little bit of confusion sometimes about the difference between what guidance counselors do and what school psychologists do. So guidance counselors really, they work with programs and services that deal and promote personal, educational, and career development for students. Whereas school psychologists, they really work with the mental health issues of students. So there's a little bit of difference there, and just want to clarify that for people. It's a little hard to get to that. Okay. The State Counselors Association really recommends 4 components of comprehensive school guidance program. Those are guidance curriculum. You can see there, I'm not going to read those out to you. They recommend a % of time counselors spend in each of those areas, the 4 components being guidance curriculum, then individual planning, responsive services, and then system support. As you can see from the elementary intermediate, the ranges of percentages that you need to spend in each time, they change around a little bit once you get to the middle and high school. I'm going to just kind of go through what each of those components consist of. The guidance curriculum, that's really when guidance counselors go into the classrooms and do a discussion, a lesson, that they try to really, a lot of what they do with that is try to set the tone of the school. They work with the principals and they get a common vocabulary, and some of their lessons are about learning to live, learning to work, learning to learn in their basic general lessons. And they go in periodically, mostly during the beginning of the year, of course, before testing starts. They address issues such as self-confidence, motivation, decision-making, goal-setting, problem-solving, interpersonal relationships, communication skills, cross-cultural effectiveness, and then responsible behavior. And the guidance counselor plays a role in developing that curriculum. Guidance counselors are really at the, principals really determine how much time guidance counselors get to go into the classroom and that kind of thing, because it really varies with the needs on each campus. Individual planning is a big role in the guidance program for counselors. They really address personal and social development, healthy self-concept, both short and long-term goals. They also do a lot of academic planning, looking at study skills, awareness of educational opportunities, and then a lot of time on appropriate course selection and then lifelong learning. The other thing that they do is they help students and families understand the utilization of their test scores, what they mean, what that does, and the effect of their planning and their goal setting. And then they also always work with career development, career opportunities, what the labor market is, and the educational path people need for the careers that they want to explore. Responsive services is really probably the most that controls counselors' lives. I mean, they always have their agenda to go do classroom guidance, but they don't get to go do classroom guidance that week because something happens. And so they're always the person on call. They work, the issues addressed are relationship issues, abuse, grief, loss, death, substance abuse, and then family problems, and then coping skills. Just to extend a little bit on that, for those of you who don't know, for example, if we should have a car accident and lose a child in the evening or at some time, or there's a suicide, the counselors immediately, doesn't matter what time of day or night it is, they pull the team together, they get on the phone and call every teacher who has that child in their class so that they don't walk in the next day getting ready to teach and not know that somebody in their classroom has had a trauma or a death experience. And so we really work on lessons. We have a whole team of a whole curriculum sort of how a principal can make an announcement to the faculty, how they can make an announcement over the PA, a classroom an activity that teachers can do in the classroom. So it's really just a whole team of people. We contact all the teachers, counselors in the district, and make a determination about whether we need to pull them from what they're doing that day to be over to help at that campus or not. We really do that carefully because sometimes we don't want somebody different coming over to a campus. Campuses have their own culture, and sometimes if there's a crisis, they don't need people they don't know there to help with the crisis. They really need to pull together. So it's a decision that kind of we make as we move along throughout the day. So that's one of our most important, I think, responsive services. But then we also, along with personal responsive services, we're working with tardies, we're working with absences and truancy, we're working with dropout preventions, and then conduct that the kids have that's inappropriate. Counselors at every level work very closely with the assistant principals that are doing discipline. So they're just really like partners. And why they don't do the discipline also often and more likely stems from a counseling sort of problem. So they get real involved in those kinds of issues. System support, this is really what we do in just being a part of everything in the school. You know, we work on all the campus improvement planning, we work on community relations, community outreach, pulling parents together, the community together into the school. So they're really a major part of all of the school systems, and probably they are the core member of the administrative team that works with the principals and the administrative leadership team. In College Station ISD, our staffing consists of one elementary counselor at the elementary schools. At the intermediate schools, we have 2, which is going to soon be 1. Right now, we sort of staff. We have a staffing formula sort of that is about 850 per counselor for every 850. That's why we added 1 in the intermediate and middle schools as we got big. But as we split those schools, you know, we're probably going to be losing some counseling staff as we drop in enrollment. At the high schools, we have 4 counselors at each school, and then a dean of students that works with both of the comprehensive high schools. And then at College View, we have 1 dean of students. And then we have an at-large counselor who is a licensed professional counselor, and she has lots of additional training, and she is on call for us to come, us meaning counselors, to come help with a really special crisis situation where we have a student out of control, or just a situation that's beyond the scope of an educational counselor and really needs some more intensive training. And she is there for us and a huge support. She also helps with a Head Start. And then we have me, I'm the director of guidance, and I get involved in all the counseling situations, usually those crisis things. How do we spend our time? I gave you the chart a minute ago about how the State Guidance Association recommends. You can still see those recommendations in red, but it shows how in doing a little survey with our counselors, how we really spend our time. With guidance curriculum, at the elementary and intermediate, we spend about 20% of the time in classrooms working on lessons, where at the middle and high school, we don't spend a lot of time doing that. There's some required things that we need to do, but we don't spend a lot of time. Responsive services are more necessary at the elementary level. They balance out a little bit more in the middle and high school level, and then just the opposite in individual planning. Individual planning grows at the secondary level, and then system support is pretty equal. And then I added non-agenda, non-guidance activities because counselors do a lot of things. Some of them do hall duty, some of them do lunch duty. They're a member of the school administrative team, and they're on call to do whatever's needed to keep the school running well. And so they have many hats. They do observations for special ed when they're doing an evaluation. They have to go in and observe in classes and give that for special ed referrals, 504 referrals. They're part of the LPAC, which is students of non-English speakers. They help with all kinds of things, and they're not always under guidance activities. Then they plan graduation, they plan school assemblies at the end of the year where they recognize people. So there's a lot of things that they just pull in because they know all the kids, and they help with those things. There's some activities that are required by law that middle and high school counselors are required to cover, and that's dating violence, bullying, and AED CPR. Not certification, but just knowledge, because they have to have that to graduate, and it has to be on their transcript somewhere between 7th and 12th grade. So we're working to put that in, since we no longer have health, since the state took away a required health course as a 9th grade student, or somewhere in 9 through 12. We are trying to incorporate it into 7th and 8th grade wellness. but we have lots of students who didn't get it at that level, so we have to make sure right now that they get that experience before they graduate. So right now, we're covering it in Senior Wellness Day, and whenever they do the senior activity, we pull all our resources together and do the kids just really have to go be taught CPR, and they have to practice it on one of our mannequins and then prove that they understand the concept. And then we have to check that, oddly, before they can graduate. Some of the other things that guidance counselors do, I know that's a little weird fact, isn't it? It was in the two legislative sessions ago, part of House Bill 5. So counselors also run some individual groups as needed at each of the different levels. Some of the groups they would run, and these aren't for all students, but just students that they really have a high need of groups of students in that area at that school. So sometimes we have a group that somebody's lost someone to death. Sometimes they have groups for kids whose parents are divorced. Sometimes they have smoking cessation groups or kids that are involved in substance abuse. Sometimes it's just kids that are with academic troubles and kids that have low self-concept. Or currently we have a couple of groups running at the elementary level for support for parents, for kids who have a parent who's been deployed. So those vary. You know, we have mean girl groups sometimes in the spring when the mean girls get going. So we, seriously, we just have those kind of things going on. And so, counselors are kind of on call. Teachers will come down and say, hey, I've got this issue going on, and the counselors will figure out a way to pull the group together and address it. They also do trainings for staff. They are required to do training for bullying, child abuse. They don't always do the trainings themselves, but they coordinate it. They also coordinate these trainings in bullying and child abuse recognition with bus drivers and custodial staff and child nutrition, because the new law also required that we have child abuse recognition for every staff member in the district. So they coordinate that kind of thing. They coordinate scheduling. They spend a lot of time looking at data disaggregation and interpretation for both students and parents and teachers. They deal with all kinds of academic issues, 504 special education and ESL modifications in support of lessons. For example, currently we have an influx of kids from Guatemala. They enter here, sometimes they arrive here at age 17. They've had a 6th grade education and they speak no English, and we embed them into the schools. So teachers will come to the counselor's office and say, I got to have some help with this child. And so we work real hard as counselors to go to the PTO or go to the university and say, hey, 5th and 6th period, is there any way you've got somebody that can speak Spanish that can come help this child with their lessons? And so we just, even though they have an ESL class, it's only 2 hours a day. So there's all kinds of different little things like that we have to work with. We like to work with staff and help make it better for kids. Program challenges. We have all kinds of people that come in from all kinds of areas, just like I told you, the kids currently coming from overseas like that. We also have kids coming from charter schools and home schools that come in, and what's required, we welcome them, and they always are happy to have them. We have to go through and work with the families and work with the students to find out what courses they've been taking, and of course, sometimes it's going back for those parents and finding work that they did and working with whatever organizations they were working in to see what that is. We have to then take that curriculum that they show us and take it to the classroom teacher and then decide, okay, yes, we're going to give them credit for that course, or no, that hasn't met the standards, or no, we're not sure, so they need to come take our final exam for that course. The state doesn't have any guidelines for that. It's up to the local school districts. So it's very important for us to be real consistent on what we do to make sure kids coming in from that situation, how they earn credit. Correspondence courses, online programs. Online programs are popping up all over the place, and people like to take them when they're traveling in the summer, so we have to make sure, spend time on the phone with those places and make sure whatever they had to do for that online course fits into what we feel like they need to have before they can get credit in the course. We're also involved in state-mandated testing responsibilities, and then 504 and RTI, that's RTI's response to intervention, and that's trying to be ahead of kids and figuring out how to intervene with their academic courses so that we can help them be successful. Master schedule development always takes a lot of time for counselors, just figuring out how to build the master schedule so it meets the needs of all kids. And then just the fact that we have 450 to 600 students per counselor, and then the time to meet the individual needs of those students and their families, and then time left over to plan the guidance programs and the activities we need to do to help keep the schools running efficiently and effectively for these students. So that was my very quick presentation. I didn't go over. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you. Any questions? You've got to have one of the hardest jobs there is, and so thank you for the effort, and if you will pass that along to your counselors. Not that the school course teaching is a difficult job as well, but you have to be on call for the what if or the late night call that's a little bit different, so thank you for that.
That's where the CPR comes into play.
I have one question for her. Okay. How did we determine the number per counselor, ratio of students?
There isn't a specific number. We for elementary schools, we have one. For intermediate middle schools, as we grew so much and we realized that's a hard age, we just realized counselors were running thin as the 504 and special ed testing and then just special needs come up. We knew we needed more, so we put that in the budget. And then at the high school, we try to keep it 600 or below. Doesn't always work that way, but there isn't a formula. There's a state recommendation from the state counseling committee, but it's.
We did actually develop formulas
And that was 850.
Yeah, and that was the work that we did in 2014-15 when we did the TASB staffing study. That was one of the numerous areas that we did work in, and so that is a.
That's when we got an additional counselor once they get to be 850.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say to you is it's a thankless job, and there are so many different moving parts to it. I know what the budget looks like, but that just seems so high, and I really do appreciate the fact that that's a lot of children to have to coordinate. A lot.
Well, counselors, we love it. It may look thankless from your part, but it's very rewarding on our part, although very trying, and so we appreciate that. So,
Anybody else? Anything else? Thank you very much. We'll move on to J1. Consider purchase of network switches for pecan trail from Avanex for the Department of Information Resources contract DIR TSO 3359 for $83,789 from the 2015 bond funds. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin, members of the board. We do have a couple of business items here. The first one is for network switches. With more information about that is Mr. Mike Martindale, Deputy Superintendent for Business and Operations. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Dr. Ely and Dr. Yokin. As part of our 2015 bond program, our technology department has identified network switches required for Pecan Trail Intermediate School. The districts worked with Avanex to secure the attached quote to this agenda item for Hewlett-Packard switches. These switches are available from Avanex through the Department of Information Resources contract 3359 with Hewlett-Packard. The DIR is an agency of the state of Texas that has established contracts with technology vendors. These contracts have been competitively bid and meet all bid requirements. It is the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the purchase of these HP network switches for Pecan Trail Intermediate from Avanex for $83,789 for the Department of Information Resources contract DIR TSO 3359 utilizing 2015 bond funds.
Do you have any questions?
No, I'm
going to abstain from discussion and voting on this matter.
I make the motion that we approve it as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries 6-0 with one abstention. We'll Move on to J2, consider purchase of audio-visual equipment for Pecan Trail Intermediate Classrooms from Avanex per the Texas A&M University Multimedia Contract AM0216PO16040 for $249,659.58 from the 2015 bond funds. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin. Similar to item J1, we have item J2 for audio-visual equipment for Pecan Trail Intermediate School. With more particulars is Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Dr. Ely. As part of our 2015 bond program, our technology department identified audio-visual equipment required for the opening of Pecan Trail Intermediate School. The district has worked with Avanex to secure the attached quote for smart interactive displays, the required mounting hardware and cabling. These AV components are available from Avanex through the Texas A&M University Multimedia Contract 16040. All items in this agreement have been competitively bid and meet bid requirements. It is the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the purchase of the audio-visual equipment for Pecan Trail Intermediate from Avanex for the cost of $249,659.58 per the Texas A&M University Multimedia Contract AM0216PO16040 utilizing 2015 bond funds.
What she said.
Yes. Thank you. Questions?
Dr. Yokin, as before, I'm going to abstain from discussion and voting on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Do I have a motion?
Go ahead, man. I move approval as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All those approve of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with one abstention.
I'm disappointed you did not read that.
We're going to move to item L1, where the board will meet in executive session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. The executive session deliberations will be held pursuant to the Personnel Matters Closed Meeting Exception to the Texas Open Meetings Act as set forth in Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We will come back into open session when we're done. I wouldn't suggest staying unless you don't have any place to go. But thank you all for coming. We're going to call the meeting back into session, and it is 8:43 and adjourn.